Join our incredible moms who have mastered the art of balancing motherhood in today's episode of We Time Convo.
My name is Debbie.
This is Liza.
Moms sharing inspiring stories, practical tips, and a few hilarious anecdotes. And it all begins now.
Thank you for listening to We Time Convo. Unfortunately, Debbie was not able to record with us today. She's a very busy lady. So I have our very special and return host here. She is a friend, a coworker, a mom. She is my unofficial, unlicensed therapist, Dawn Marie. Say hi, Dawn Marie.
Hello.
So today's topic is going to be college readiness. And we have Natalie here, who is actually the college and career specialist at where I work. Say hi, Natalie.
Hi.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Okay, so my name is Natalie, and I've been a college and career specialist in public school for the past 7 years. I came into that job a little bit by chance.
Yeah.
It fell on my lap. But my background is in engineering, in the high tech in the area. And I just loved working on career development at work. And I figured that could translate into high school to help the student think about that ahead of time. I have 3 girls. My oldest already graduated college and is working. Her name is Melanie.
Yeah,
I know.
I can't believe that so fast.
She's 22. Then I have Sophie, who is 20 and is a junior in college. And then I have Stephanie, who is 17 and a senior in our high school.
So, Natalie's the best. She's really good at what she does.
She dived into that job because it wasn't created yet at our school site.
True.
And being a parent before, and then just dived right into it, and then has really developed it into a great resource for all the students and families on campus. And there's just a lot of activities that you do for our students and some of our staff too, because we all have now kids are going to our high school.
Sure.
Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the stuff you do for our students on campus?
Yeah, so I do a lot. My role is really about educating, right? So I am not a private college counselor, nowhere near that. I do work one-on-one with students, but only if they come and ask for it. Otherwise, my role is more an outreach to groups. So I offer a lot of workshops for seniors during the application season. They can come 3 times a week. Meet with me and a group of very active volunteers, and we help them through the whole application, including writing their college essays. And then the rest of the year, I do a lot of outreach to different groups. Right now, I'm especially working with the juniors and getting them ready so that they're first less stressed by the process, and also they feel more ready when senior year starts and it's not as overwhelming.
Yeah, because right now our seniors are getting their applications have already been turned in and they're getting their acceptance letters.
They're hearing back. Yeah, this very moment is not fun for the seniors. So we try I disappear a little bit in the background and this time so that they kind of forget about the whole thing.
Yeah, I definitely have some senior TAs. I'm just always like, what did we hear from today? And what's going on?
Yeah, she does. And you do the test, like AP testing coordinating.
I do, yeah.
Testing coordinating. You help the counselors so much. Yeah. And you also do you just do everything. You do way more. And we do senior awards together.
We do. It's fun.
Yeah. And I don't know if you want me to mention this, but this is your last year.
It is my last year. Yeah. I'm okay.
Because you wanted to do this up until your last one was done with high school. And I'm going to, we're all going to miss you so much. It's going to be very hard to fill those shoes. Very, very hard.
You're sweet.
So let's get into all our questions here. So one of the first questions is there really any disadvantage to chilling in high school, doing well in community college, then transferring for a BA in a 4-year?
Absolutely not. So chilling in high school, right? We all agree you still have to learn. You're in high school to learn. You have to bring, and it's very foundational what you learn in high school. So do your best. Absolutely. But you don't have to really always take the most challenging and the busiest schedule. You can absolutely go through high school. Average.
I'll assume when we say chilling, just for everybody else listening, is not taking a massive amount of AP courses. That's, I think, what we're talking about when we say chilling. Yeah.
Is it just basically just taking whatever the requirement is?
The A through G requirements.
Yeah. Take your A to G, try to explore a couple of things that might be interesting for you in the future. But you don't have to have APs every year. Take it even APs at all if that's not for you. And you can absolutely do the transfer pathway. You can also go straight to college after doing an average high school experience.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I have to say I have former students and they've gone that path either because financially when it came down to it, they couldn't get pay for the college that they really wanted to get into. They did the two-year community college because we're in a great area where there's a lot of good community colleges. Yeah. And then they did transfer. And I think that worked out. They really thrived in the community college experience too. And still being at home. I think something we do miss out with college talking about it is the maturity level of some of our students. Yeah. Even though there's a push and thinking this is the 4-year, I think parents and students need to really communicate and talk about the maturity level of being away from home and what that would actually mean. Because some of our kids have not been away from mom and dad for very long. When you're talking about colleges and financials too, when you turn 18 and you're able to get all that stuff, that goes with you for your lifetime, right? So it is important just as much as NORCAN and all that. But
So yes, that's what we're going to be doing.
My question for you is, how important is volunteer work and being in clubs on a college application?
Right. So if a school is doing what we call the holistic review, meaning they don't only look at your grades and your classes, the classes you took, then any extracurricular activity is going to be important. But to be honest, it's really any. So it's not like you have to have a checklist and do some volunteering and, some athletics and some performing arts. It's just, what do you do with your time when you're not at school or during homework, right? So it can be either or. Some students specialize themselves. We have athletes where they really don't have the choice, like they're double, triple season athletes. They're on year-round teams and so on. So that's pretty much it. But even within that context, they can show leadership. They can train younger students. They can volunteer in their volleyball club to come an extra hour early to work with the younger team or things like that. So even within that context, they can find time to do more than just play and work on their performance. Or we have students that are very broad and they just can't say no to anything, or they just still haven't found the thing for them. So they really try everything, and that's fine. Also, another thing I want to mention is volunteering or working is exactly the same on a college application.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately, right? Because some students cannot afford to volunteer. Yeah. They have to work to pay some of their bills.
I mean, look where we live.
Some of their parents' bills. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. We do have, even in our little privileged area, we still have students that actually work to pay bills for their parents.
Oh yeah. So I do the workers permits and we see that a lot.
Right.
And
it's not only for fun and to work on their car or to pay their car insurance. Some of them actually give money to their parents to pay the bills.
So they can use that towards volunteer work.
No difference on a college application, whether it's paid work or free work, if you want to call volunteering that. So it's the same, because what you learn when you volunteer or when you work, you learn, punctuality, working with people, taking orders, managing expectations,
customer service,
communication with people that are older than you, all those skills that you will learn whether you volunteer or you work. So
learning about taxes being taken out of your paycheck.
Yeah, and gig jobs, you have to pay employment tax on top of it, little things you learn. Yeah, so all those are important skills you can pick up anytime. And some students do neither because they're very involved in other activities. We have our performers, for example. Performing art in our school is like, oh my God, sometimes I felt like my own daughters were more at school than at home.
Oh yeah,
way more. Like,
hour-wise, yes.
Yeah, hour-wise. So so they they don't necessarily have time for a job or to volunteer outside of their main activity. But the important part is they were giving back through that activity and things like that. So it's all about what do you do when you're not. I know parents also sometimes say, well, my kid's just at home playing video games. I'm like, well, even there, it might not be you. what we perceive as useless time, actually. You know, are they active? Are they managing their Discord group maybe or things like that? It's funny, but right. The problem is we're looking at our referential, right? And we grew up in such a different time, different.
Oh, well, video gaming is a billion-dollar business. It makes more money than the movies.
Yeah.
So
kids can get sports scholarships now for video gaming, right?
I didn't know that.
Sports, right? Yeah. So
the music that goes to video games. Yeah, there's a whole
storytelling, the script. So there's a whole thing. I mean, if they're if they're the game master in their D&D, I think it's called, right? D&D game, all that. So don't dismiss necessarily what your student is, what you don't want, because then that again another issue. If your kid is just sitting on the couch on social media all day long, then unless they're very active influencers and they have huge following, there probably is something more that you should see what's going on, right? Is there because they have issue with social, the social aspect of their lives or any type of mental health.
If it's measurable, but I know we do have a number of students who've gone through hardships, maybe their freshman, sophomore year. That could be not getting over, but working through anxiety or a loss of a parent.
Or COVID.
Yeah. And then they've come back, they've done very well. Have you seen anything with that? Because it's always hard for us to get the numbers for our graduates and what they're doing later on. Yeah. But have you seen, I think that's another question for our families is that doable to go on to college if they've had a hardship and they had a semester where they just didn't do well, and they wrote about that in their college essay. Probably.
Well, we've had students that were sick, had cancer, and things like that, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. So two things. So first, there is from the application point of view, this is usually most of them. We help them work it through their story. As much as they're willing to share. They don't have to share anything medical ever, but sometimes they feel like it gives a meaning behind their story. So we help them weave that into their essay, right? So there is that. So, and also what colleges are looking at is the progression. So what they don't want is, academic progress going down, the inverse of progress, but they can also be a little deep. Right. But what's important is by the time you apply to college, you must be on an upward trend. Okay. If not, that's definitely a time where you have to think, okay, I'm still on a downward trend. Let's see what's the right fit for me. Okay. Right. So definitely there is that. Absolutely. Now, the flip side of it is if the hardship came from a struggle with the transition from middle to high school, then the family really has to think, was that addressed sufficiently, and did the student pick up enough skills that during the next transition, which is high school to college, the same issues won't resurface.
Okay, that's a good point.
Right, so you have to make sure that it's been addressed in a way that shows, okay, there's enough maturity that came along. There are enough tools that were maybe learned during therapy sessions or things like that, so that the student has a chance to be successful during the next big transition. Okay. Because in the in the end, it is a transition time. Yeah. Right. So if it's the transition that created a hardship, you really have to think about that. Now, if the child unfortunately had cancer during high school, we're not going to expect that to reproduce just because they go to college. So that's totally different, right? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. We're going to move on. When is the best time to start visiting colleges? Anything we should have in mind when we visit the college too? Yeah.
So it's best to visit a college when they're in session themselves. Okay. So if we're on spring break and you want to go out, to make sure they're not also on spring break. Breaks, I would say, in California at least don't coincide too much between the public schools or the high schools and the universities. So usually that's not a problem in California, but it could be with other states. And so it's better to go when the school is in session so that you can pick up on the vibe and the type of students, the energy on the campus. Yeah, the culture, the pressure also. Age-wise, there's no perfect time. What I always say is try to make college visits part of your daily routine in a way, of your family culture, right? Yeah. So you go to Hawaii. They have a couple of really nice schools there that are really close to the beach, so perfect, right? Go take a tour, right? If you can do a formal tour where you meet students, that's great. If you can't because you go at a time where the school is not in session, just, still take them on campus to just make it natural, right? You don't have to go out of your way, spend hundreds or thousands of dollars to do college visits. I would totally incorporate in it because you never know which school you're going to get into. So thinking, you can plan your future college visits, it's a myth. Yeah. So just go visit colleges, universities when they're there. Where we live, we're very lucky because we have few universities compared to other areas in the US, but they're very diverse. So we have a small private faith-based university. We have a large public school. We have the two types of public systems that exist in California are within 45 minutes to an hour drive from us. So we're pretty lucky with that.
Yeah, we're very lucky with that.
Right. We have a bunch of community colleges, like you said, that are very strong. So you can really go and visit the colleges in your area to give you an idea of what type works for you.
I'm always surprised in talking to my students about they want to go somewhere back east. I'm like, have you really lived in the snow and visit the snow? Right. Because going from California to Michigan is...
We're not equipped for that. I'm not. There's no way.
Yeah, but you can wait for those once you know where you get in.
Yeah. And I do have some seniors that are visiting their colleges.
Exactly. So I would say if your family can afford it, the best time to visit colleges actually is once you got admitted. Yeah. Ideally on an admit student day. Yeah, because if you go to an admit student day, you're going to see the peers you'll be in class with. I know for both of my older daughters, that's what made the difference.
Oh, really?
Yeah. When they saw their future peers. And we had done, because I usually drag them to visit wherever we go. So we had done a lot of college tours and they were like, okay, fine. But once they saw who else was going to be in the classroom with them, it made the whole difference for them.
Mm-hmm. That's such good advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do colleges, UCs versus state, look at as far as like volunteer work? What type of scoring in tests, PSATs?
Okay. So it's okay that we talk about California?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So TBD on other states.
Yeah, I know. Right?
So California, we have two systems, the UCs and the Cal States, CSUs, right? So CSUs are purely performance-based, I want to call it, meaning it's only grades and the type of classes you took. Right. So when you were asking earlier about chilling in high school, they're going to count. The most competitive Cal States are going to look at how many advanced classes did you take them? When did you take them? Things like that. Right. That doesn't mean you have to take many, but just know it's taken into account as well as your grades. Right. Yeah. I always say, is it better to have, and because I get the question all the time, is it better to have a B in an AP class or an A in an on-level class? My answer is always, it's better to have an A on-level class than a C in an AP class. Yeah. And I will leave it at that. That B in an AP class sometimes could impact the student all through their transcript, meaning I'm not saying the 1B is going to change, because they work so hard to get to that B that they have kind of not done a lot on their other classes that are on level, and they end up with lower grade throughout their transcript.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. And you see what I mean? So that UCs will look at a little more. They're gonna, look at your activities. So again, do you volunteer? Do you work? Are you a performer? Are you an athlete? Do you have a special talent? You get to describe up to 20 of your activities on your UC application. It's very short. It's like 2 sentences per activity. Okay. Don't get to talk a lot about them, but usually most of the activities, the admission officers will recognize just from the title. They'll know what you're doing. And then you're going to submit 4 personal insight questions, PIQs, which are the short format of a college essay. Okay. And it's only the UCs that do that. Instead of doing a college essay, you do 4 PIQs. For the UCs. And those are really important. They're read by 2 admission officers and they're scored by both. And then the average score is added to the application.
And then have you met with any of those college admission officers?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah.
Okay. And do they ever say like, they're specifically looking for, or what's ridiculous, or what's caught their eye?
I mean, you'll have some about, there are a few things you don't talk about on a personal insight question. Religion usually doesn't have its place on a college application unless you're applying to a religiously motivated college, right? Yeah. Otherwise, it doesn't have its place. Politics usually are not, unless you're talking about politics in a theoretical point of view, but you're not there to share your political views. They don't care either way. They want a diverse campus. And then sex is usually something you don't want to talk about unless it's part of a bigger event, right? A trauma you've had or something like that. But yeah, apparently I met an admission officer one day that said one kid had talked about his first experience, and the whole essay was about his first night with his girlfriend.
Did he get in?
No. And
one way to entertain the
and she said it was funny because she said until that time she had always said you can talk about anything on the college essay, and then she's like, I had to change and say no, there are things that are private. And she's like, he was trying to do a metaphor or whatever, but at the end of the day he was describing his first night with his girlfriend. No one wants to read that.
Interesting.
Oh yeah, usually they say if you can't have your grandma read your college essay, probably you should rewrite it.
That's good advice. Yes.
I concur with that advice. Same thing about bathing suits when we do the swim lesson. If you can't wear it in front of your significant other's grandmother, do not wear it.
Yeah, exactly. So, but otherwise, what we like to tell the students, ideally, if you wrote your college essay or your PIQ and you left it on a bench somewhere in the quad, let's say, and someone walked by and picked it up and read it, ideally they would be able to know which student wrote that. And that's what you're trying to get to, is like, it should be so descriptive that someone should be able to, that knows you, should be able to recognize it's you.
Okay, perfect.
And then how about PSATs?
So PSAT, most schools nowadays offer the PSAT only for the National Merit Scholarship Qualifier Test, NMSQT. Okay. Yeah. So that's the one you take at the beginning of your junior year. It's a good practice test also if you decide you want to take your SATs. And for the National Merit Scholarship, if you become a finalist and a scholar, some schools like USC will give you 50% off your tuition. You'll have other smaller schools that will give you a full ride if you're a finalist. So there's really value for that. It's also a good indicator for you to know, where do I sit in that sea of juniors in the country, right? And for some students that have an issue to self-evaluate or who have never taken an AP exam, for example, that's another way for them to see, okay, well, because with your score, they're going to tell you where you fall within as a percentile within the general population, right? Okay. So that can be used for that. Yeah.
Okay. Scholarships, financial aid, how much should be put onto the student as a teenager to be looking into that?
Yeah.
How much do the parents put into looking for resources for that too? And then have you seen a formula that works very well for families to go like, we need 80% of this covered or 50% or that?
That's a good question.
Because that's a hard conversation we were just talking about credit scores, right? Yeah. But looking at a student and going into debt for their degree to come out $300,000, $400,000 in debt for their dream college, you don't get paid that much when you get out of school. So that, I think, is a bigger conversation we need to have with our families and students about how to go about this process of getting this degree to have a certain occupation and not going into debt.
I know.
Over it.
I know.
Too. That's part.
That's a big thing.
Most experts will tell you should not borrow more than what the federal government offers as loans. Okay. Which, don't quote me on that, because I think it's $5,500 for your freshman year. Okay. And $65,000 the other 3 years, $6,500. So it turns out to about $25,000, I think, over 4 years. Or 27 maybe, something like that. And that is what a young professional who got a bachelor's degree should expect to be able to reimburse in a reasonable amount of time without impacting their future life, like when they can settle, when they can purchase a house or things like that. So basically, ideally, in an ideal world, that's what the upper limit should be as far as debt, right? So we live in an area where a lot of parents can bankroll their kids' education. What they decide to put into their kids' education is no one's business, right? And they shouldn't be judged for that. So as far, but the other thing the experts say is you cannot borrow towards your retirement. So meaning you should never like cash out a 401k, an IRA, things like that, even borrow against, because some companies will allow you to pull out some money and you just pay back with an interest, right? That is not a good calculation. You will never earn more in retirement than you do now. So it's really not a good idea to borrow if it's going to impact your future retirement, right? After that, each family should look, and the most important is each family has to be very clear and very open with their student, especially their seniors, but I would start in junior year, about what the budget they're willing to put in and how much, what's their cap, and then what the student would have to then cover if they decide to go beyond that envelope that they're being offered, right? We have to remember that, education is expensive, but there's also free education that is available, or very low cost, right? In our area, it's free. We have community colleges for 2 years that are free, right? You can then also stay home and go to San Jose State, one of the top universities in the nation, especially in engineering, computer science. And the tuition over there is, and again, don't quote me, numbers change all the time, but it's something like $7,500 for the year to go to San Jose State, with fees and maybe books and so on, let's say 10,000 a year, right? So
parking
if you
tickets.
And they could just drive there. Like you don't have to pay for, a dorm.
Exactly. So you do 2 years at a communication college, 2 years at San Jose State. If you put the time to not lose any time, right? We're talking about 20K, right? So you can do it.
I think
you can do it, and you can do it by borrowing from those federal loans. Yeah, and you will be able to repay that.
So, what community colleges are free?
So in our area, all of them are, but a couple of them have a cap on the family income.
Got it. Okay, so it's based on income.
Some.
Okay.
But if the student was 18 and it wasn't claimed on their parents' taxes,
it's not the same. So it's not related to your tax status. It's related to what is considered independent in the eyes of FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. And it's very, very strict. So a student could have been pretty much independent for a while and still not qualify to file on their own and have to report their parents' income. They can be estranged from their parents and still have to report the income. So it is really not that easy. So I don't want people to think that just because they're 18, they have to be either 24 or have already graduated with a bachelor's degree, or be married or have a child to be automatically independent. The other ones are quite complicated, and most students will not qualify for an override of their dependency status. So the parents' income, but that income cap in our area is really high. It's almost 200K.
Wow.
Right?
Well, I mean, yes.
And when you know that particular college, their tuition anyway is about $2,500 for the year. If your parents are making over 200K, they can give you $2,500 to pay for your college, right? Or you can work and make those $2,500 even as a young 18-year-old. Minimum wage is pretty high in our area, so they can absolutely make it. So basically, really, people have access to education if they're willing to look at what is available to them and not hang on too much to that dream college, right? Or that dream experience they're looking for, right? I mean, I always use the same example, right? I mean, I'm sure I would love to even drive a Porsche, right?
Or own a house here.
Right? And I don't, and right? It's not unfair.
No.
Right? So why, I mean, I come from France where we have free education, so I shouldn't be saying that, but in this country, right, access to education is not It's not a right in the same sense. So, but there are free or low cost options. So people saying it's not fair that I cannot afford such and such college. That's not true. It's the same as me saying, well, I would love to drive a Porsche.
Yeah. No, there's definitely, I think, dream colleges people have, but I'm like, is it the aesthetics or is it just the clout of the name? Because what you get in that workforce too, and we've all been there now, if you don't get along with your colleagues and if you don't get along with the boss and know how to work them too, that degree is only going to get you maybe in the door, but not to last forever.
Yeah, actually, most studies show that those big names are only an elevator for students that come from that don't have already that in their family. So what does that mean? It's like if a student comes from parents who already have education, higher education from known schools, they already have access to the network.
Yes.
And them attending a known school is not going to open that many more doors.
Yeah.
So it's only for the families where there's not an access to that type of networking opportunities that it could make a total difference. So first generation low income student going to Harvard is going to have opportunities that, yes, they will not get from going to San Jose State, most of them.
And
right?
it also doesn't guarantee happiness and knowing how to navigate life at all.
It doesn't even guarantee you a job. I mean, you still have to sell yourself and so on. So, it might guarantee you an interview, potentially if you're really in one of those very big names. But that's it. After that, it's what you do with it, right? So for many students, you really, the name of the school actually has very little impact. You also have to think of the student that want to go into graduate studies or professional studies and all the debt you're going to have to acquire. Then you don't want to start med school with any debt. Like the goal is to, if you're going to go med school, law school, you're going to want to, especially med school. Law school, you can make back your money a little faster. The problem with med school is it's so long. Yeah. And you work for 3 years for free, remember?
Yeah,
right?
I know.
What they call residency. Right?
Yeah.
You're basically a free labor. I mean, you're compensated, but just so you don't starve and you can have a roof to sleep so you can actually do your job. So think about it, right? If you already have college debt by then, med school on average is $250,000.
Oh, ouch. Yeah.
There are a few free med schools in the US, but they're rare and they're very competitive.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Rightfully so.
The average student will have to take $250,000 in debt to go to med school.
Oh my God.
Right?
And San Jose peeps, Evergreen College, they just redid their college. It's beautiful. So, I mean, community college. It's fine.
It's a great option. And again, I'm not here to judge how people use their money. I'm just saying about if you have to go into debt, you really have to think about it. The ROI is not there. The return on investment is actually not there.
Absolutely.
And it's been proven again and again.
Oh, yeah.
So, but if you can bankroll it, I mean, again, go drive your Porsche. I'm not...
I can go buy my house. Yeah.
But if if you drive a Porsche and your kid has to work so that they can, buy the clothes on their back, then I'm going to charge you, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So,
100%.
Right?
Yeah. Do you recommend students taking AP courses if they are not going into the UC system? And what is the recommended amount of AP courses students should take?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. So definitely. I mean, APs can be used everywhere. They can even help you for placement. So you, even if you go to a community college, having done an AP classes might allow you to go directly into upper level or higher level classes.
Yeah. And sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. So just for parents or people that don't know what it is, what exactly are AP classes? Yeah.
So AP is short for advanced placement, and it's basically a college level curriculum that is taught by a high school teacher on a high school campus.
So for instance, if they take these classes in high school, they don't have to take them?
In some colleges, they don't necessarily give you credit. They don't necessarily give you placement. It's very complex because it's system specific, it's campus specific, and it's major specific. Right. So you could get credit overall towards your graduation from college towards your BA, but that doesn't mean that if you took EP36 2 and you go into engineering, you may have to do again physics level 2 or whatever it's equivalent. You may have to redo it because, especially if you go to an engineering program, because they want the core curriculum to have been taught by their own professors, because then they can control the progress of the students. So but it might give you elective credit so that you have one less class to take to graduate, and you could maybe graduate earlier.
Yeah.
One thing, you could go into more advanced curriculum faster, which can be very exciting for students that really want to go deep into one subject.
And then
so there are many reasons.
AP courses can a UC system take?
I don't think there is a cap. I haven't found. I've heard that some make cap at 24 credits.
Okay,
I've heard that like overall, but that includes also like if you were to transfer or if you had taken a university course or something. So some schools, what they do is they have an institution credit requirement. Yeah. So my second one is in a very tiny private liberal art college. She can take up to half of her credits outside of her school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Through like community colleges?
Anything. Community college. She could take a summer session at a different university. She brought all her AP credits, everything. And technically, yeah, she could have brought up to 60 out of the 120.
Yeah, that's another thing to talk about is smaller colleges, independent ones, how much I've heard over the years, certain parents gravitate towards those because they gave them more scholarships and they enjoy the smaller campuses.
They're more generous. You can you can have a strategy where you go for a less selective college than what your own numbers show. And the higher you are above their average student, the more money they're going to throw at you to bring you in so that they can have their average go up, right? They do that with athletes also. There's a whole strategy you can have. And so it's all about, again, resetting your expectations, right?
Oh, yeah.
So that can be a strategy.
And then also
to do that.
your major too.
Yeah. And major and so on. So there are tons of strategies you can do. Absolutely. So you were asking how many. So advanced placement courses, I think they're good because they challenge the students, right? And most students can take a little bit of challenge, right? So if it's not going to affect their mental health, my personal opinion is that every student should have graduated high school trying at least one AP. Again, unless really like academics are very, very challenging for them already as it is, or they just don't have the mental health strength to do it.
And talking to them. So I work with mostly freshmen, sophomores.
Yes, yeah.
And when they do their programming, their freshman year about this time, they might Jones with their peers. I'm like, oh, you're taking these. I want to take these. Yeah. And instead of, we'll reiterate, or at least I do it. What can you handle? This is freshman year is different from your sophomore year. Take a breath. It's not a competition against somebody else. What do you think you might want to do later on? And just to take that reflective note, because I've definitely had students who signed up for everything because their eyes got shiny. And
and peer pressure. Lots of peer pressure.
I know there's parents that pressure, but amongst themselves.
Oh, it's way worse.
Overhearing their conversations.
I spend my Fridays in my office hours talking to parents who are like, I don't know why my kid absolutely wants to take all those classes. And I keep on telling them not to and so on. The peer pressure is way stronger than the parent pressure.
Unnecessarily, because you don't know what Liza's going to do is going to be different what I want to do in life, regardless if we were both having the same passion. I'm like, hey, and how I handle stress and the mental load, I've definitely had kids break down in the office quite a few times about.
Oh, yeah. And I've seen that in the main office all the time.
Yeah.
It's just the pressure and
it's just too much. Yeah.
And where we should be celebrating learning and that education shouldn't come always easily the first time around. Like everybody who's invented anything failed numerous times, but we never elaborate and talk about that. Yeah. So even in education, if you failed a class, we'll reflect back what happened. Yeah. Did a big family life event and you just need to take a step back? Yeah. Or is this not maybe the path for you?
Yeah. Or were you missing a foundational class, when you try to take, we see that, in EP36 students taking it before they have the math level to be successful in that class. So things like that. So,
and then have you also seen or found some of our students, I know for math and other subject matters, like to take courses during the summertime to help boost whatever scores and such. Have you found that to be an avenue too of parents investing so much during outside of art
they
scholars.
do. I think it's a mistake. I think most of the students end up accelerating so much that we don't have a curriculum for them anymore.
Yeah, there's a couple kids.
And if
wild.
they really,
No.
and if they don't continue by going to very high level, like things I did way into my bachelor's, because I majored in applied mathematics, right? They're taking classes that are very advanced, and they have to, in a way, I mean, quote unquote, because if they don't and they're going towards a STEM major, that gap of not having done math for a year or two is going to be a negative on their application. So there is really something against extreme acceleration for sure, which we see in our school and totally in the area. So I'm not a big fan at all.
Extreme acceleration. I think that's the first time I've heard of that.
Extreme acceleration, And I mean, a student, the majority of students should not aim to finish Calculus BC by the end of senior year.
Okay.
To place yourself as a strong candidate, you have to aim, if you can, to have at least 1 year of calculus in your high school years. If you do that, you're already above the average nationwide.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're a strong candidate to any STEM major. And by the way, if you're not going towards STEM, really, unless you enjoy math, there's really little
that's the other thing about
to also do that.
Courses and
spend
selection.
that time in APUSH or AP or take a dual enrollment class or concurrent enrollment class at one of our community colleges and actually explore something that we don't offer. There's a lot we don't offer.
Yeah.
A lot.
And we can't. There's not enough time in the day, and there's not enough.
And no funding. Even if we had funding, I mean, we couldn't address the needs of 450 seniors that want to discover something later on, Yeah.
Okay, so the last question on here is what makes a student stand out on college applications? Does the student have to have a 3.5 higher GPA, but is currently not doing sports or clubs? Yeah,
I mean, there's a spot for everyone, literally. I mean, there are 4,000 universities in the US. About 2,000 of them I would have been willing my kids to go to. I always have that little caveat for different reasons, right? All that to say, there's a lot of choices. So there's a place for everyone. If you graduate from high school, you will be able to go even straight to a 4-year university. That's what you want. Yeah. You may have to reassess some of your wants, but you can always find a college, right? And that was not even counting the community colleges at my number. That was 4-year universities. So on top of that, you have to add all the community colleges, right? Yeah. So it's a lot of choices. So it really depends. It's a little bit what you were saying in the first question, what if I want to chill? Then go ahead, right? And you will still be able to go to college, either straight after high school, through the transfer pathway, whatever is the best fit for you. Yeah. Right? And yes, if you go a little bit beyond, you might have more doors open, right? But you will have doors open no matter what, if you're careful on where you try to send your application to. Yeah. So really, yes, there's room for, we have really great state systems on the whole West Coast. So whether Washington, Oregon, or California, those 3 systems are purely based on your grades. So yes, if you have, a 2.0 in high school, are you going to get straight into an engineering program? And you were, let's say, all on-level classes, 2.0 GPA. Are you going to get straight into an engineering program? Probably not, right? Because you're going to have to get to college, take a few classes, and show that you have the foundational knowledge you need and also the study skills you need to be successful, right? But then you'll be able to then transfer into engineering if you go to the right schools, right? Yeah.
And there are scholarships for the college applications, because good Lord, some of my students applied to like 18 schools.
I know. So,
oh my goodness.
First, that's a big mistake.
Yeah.
They should keep that money and then they come and they ask me, how can I find a scholarship for my college? I'm like, well, if you didn't apply to 12 of those schools, then you already would have enough to pay your first semester.
No.
Yeah. So, if you are low income, first generation or not, but there are companies that give scholarships for your college applications. Most private schools will give you a waiver. Okay. If you're below a certain level, the UCs will give you a waiver for up to 4 campuses. Oh, wow. Same with the CSUs. And then I know in our school, our home and school club also offers scholarships for those students that are just at the cusp. They didn't get the waiver, the automatic waiver when they applied, but their counselor knows that, there are reasons why that would be a hardship.
Okay.
And so they can get 2 to 4 college application fees covered by the scholarship. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice. So I have one more question for you is, what if someone like me, like an adult, never got to finish college? I did 2 years of community college. If I wanted to go back to college.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously I graduated high school in 99. Learning and what we were taught is a lot different from it is now. So if I were to, want to go to community college and get my degree or do something because my kids are a little bit older, how would that impact me, like learning wise? Do I have to start all over again?
No, they'll ask you to provide every college transcript of any institution you've been to.
Do they expire?
They don't.
Okay.
They don't, but they could. So they don't technically, but they could be like, oh, well, the curriculum we taught 20 years ago.
I've had that happen.
Let's say 10 years
somebody,
ago. Could be now, that's not exactly the curriculum we teach again. So we want you to repeat that class.
Okay.
Or take a slightly different class or things like that. But per se, they don't expire. Now, would they all transfer towards your graduation? Maybe, maybe not, right? Again, they would evaluate where you are at, and then you would share with them what your goal is. Is your goal to transfer to a 4-year university or to finish with an AA in a community college? And then they would map that out for you to tell you how, which classes.
So it's never too late.
So it's never too late.
Yeah.
It's never too late. And you could actually use the same process and go directly to San Jose State, for example, our local school, and bring them, and they would do an evaluation, right? If you have what they believe is an equivalent of 60 credits, you could apply directly into San Jose State. If you're short of that minimum, you need to transfer, because in California, you cannot transfer unless you have 60 credits. So if you're short of that, they will map with you what you need to take at the community college before you can actually send your application.
Yeah. Nice. Well, thank you. Well, this is a little bit of a longer episode, but as you know, this is a lot. This is a lot. And I hope this is very informative to all our parents and students as well. And Natalie, it's so nice seeing you in this element because I don't see you in this element.
Right, that's true.
It's always like, hey, Liza, have you seen the tablecloths, or have you seen the coffee pot? Or, we're always talking about senior awards. So it's just refreshing and so nice seeing you in this element because like, you're like a baddie in what you do, everything. And I could just go on and on. I could just listen to you all day. Thank you so much for coming on and just, sharing your knowledge. And it's very helpful to parents, students out there. And thank you, Dawn Marie, for co-hosting.
Thank you, Liza.
Thank you guys for coming on. But thank you. And hopefully we can get you on as a guest for other topics.
Sure. Let me know.
Thank you.